Welcome to Five Nights at Freddy's. This is a game that I designed based off the original game, purely in vanilla Minecraft. If you don't already know how Five Nights at Freddy's works as a game, let's quickly go over that. This is Five Nights at Freddy's. How to play is very simple. You're stuck in this room, and you look around using your mouse. While you're looking around, you can control a light outside. You can control a door, and you can do that on both sides. What you can also do is open up the cameras, and here we can turn around and look at all the different locations throughout the game. Ah! I got jump scared. Yeah, you sit in the room and hope that you don't get jump scared. And you can stop yourself from getting jump scared by closing the door. Now let's jump back over to Minecraft so that I can show you how I made a remake of Five Nights at Freddy's. First, we have to just press the start button. We hear a heartbeat, and I start to hear footsteps over here. So we're gonna turn on the lights and close the door. And that animatronic that popped up should leave. I now hear footsteps on the right. I see an animatronic. Gotta look to turn that light on. Gotta look the other way to turn that light on. And then I've gotta close the door. And that animatronic should leave. And then every once in a while, these text screens will pop up and they'll say, hey, something's going on. And all you need to do is hit the button. Looks something like this. Oh, gotta hit the button. So it's pretty similar, right? You can control the doors, right? But then this side you have a light control, that's the button. This side, when there's an animatronic, you can turn on the lights up at the top as well. And then in here, while you're standing in the office, it's just a little bit different as you are going to be looking at the buttons and verifying that they're always off. Kind of as if you're checking cams, because we can't really do that. Now this is what the inside looks like, all in a creative world. This is crazy! The first thing that we need to talk about is the layout. The FNAF layout looks something like this. We have one of the hallways, and over here we have another hallway with a couple of like closets on the sides, and then right in here is the security room. This is what we actually have. It's a little bit smaller, so that way our final build can be a little bit smaller. But then as we get to the hallways, we have the hallways that come back into the office, and then this hallway here as well. Each hallway and room has their own scare mechanism, and now we are going to go through how each and every one of those works. So when one of the lights turn on, signal comes through, and the player needs to hit the button to turn it off. And then nothing happens. But if the player hits the button and they don't do anything about it, then they will get scared. What happens is when this lamp is turned on, turns on this lamp right here, and it also starts this comparator timer. If this comparator timer runs out, it opens this trap door, which will scare the player. However, if in the short amount of time that this timer is going, the player hits the button, then it locks this repeater, making it so that the trapdoor signal can no longer come up and scare the player. If you are to be scared, it would look something like this. And an animatronic drops down from the ceiling, giving you a fright. The scare comes in to this little block right here. This is the signal that says, hey, I'm ready to be scared. And so then you hit it. An animatronic will pop up in the hallway. So this is the office right here that we're in. Animatronic pops up, and you can see it down in the hallway. So then what you have to do, you have to turn on the light above its head and then close the door. And if you do that quick enough, it will drop and you will not be scared. If you're too slow, then that's what happens. So let's walk through step by step. So first up, these lime green circuits, these are simple launchers. So it just launches the animatronic up here and holds it up here. And then when it's triggered again, it will drop it. Then if we work backwards, we'll turn on this lamp. This lamp will go down this green line, and this right here is footsteps. Let's go through how this main hallway functions. First up, what we gotta know is that this right here is an AND gate. So this torch and this torch are creating an AND gate. So when this torch is off and this torch is off, then this copper bulb can be powered. When that copper bulb is powered, it now unlocks this repeater. So we hit this button, so that signifies that our game has called for a scare down the main hallway. And then this will deactivate this torch, and it'll also deactivate this torch, which will now mean that this repeater is unlocked, meaning that this torch can be turned off, which happens by turning on the light. So you can see you turn on the light, which is right up here, and that also comes around to this line over here. So once you turn on the light, then now this repeater is unlocked, which means that this signal can come through right here to close the door, and it comes through and it unpowers this, which then loops back and then resets the whole circuit basically. And it also comes down here and takes a short timer to close the door. So when you push this button, it'll just close the door for this timer, but it will not allow the signal to come through. Now, the way that the scare works here is if a signal comes through like this, it'll send a signal down here. This is kind of hard to see, but there's redstone on this red wool. This starts this short hopper timer, which turns on this bulb, and when that's on, this is up, and then once it turns off, so a second change happens down here in the hopper clock, then it'll come down and trigger this scare system. So what we've got behind these paintings, if I can get in there. Hello? How do I enter? Oh, I only have one block open. When you look at a creaking in survival, they will freeze. And when they freeze, they sink in water. However, when you're not looking at them, then they float in water. We use this mechanism to make a look detection. So when this hallway number 2, gets triggered, we can walk out here, look this direction, and that will turn on this light. And then we look this way, that'll turn on this light. Oh, and it's gone. It'll turn on that light. And then you'll need to come back in here and close the door once again. Becomes active. We have footsteps once again. And then now if I just go /game mode survival, then we'll be able to see I look down this direction, the creaking sinks, turns on this light. Then I come over here, look this way, the creaking sinks, turns on this light, and we can see that there's the scare guy right here. So then we come in here, push this button, and we can see that's not supposed to happen. So when this lamp is on, it'll send a signal down to both sides to unlock their respective copper bulbs. And so then, once you look at the creaking, then it'll stand on the pressure plate, which will turn on the bulb, which will cause a looping signal. Right over here, we can show it. It'll cause this looping signal. So that way, this comparator comes on, which then powers through here. comes down over over here, and then it powers through here, and it keeps that locked on. So once you've looked at it, now it's locked on and you can't stop looking at it. So if you look at it twice, it doesn't change whether or not this is on, right? It'll stay on. But then once you look at both sides and both lamps are on, then you will have, we've got a bunch of AND gates right here. So we've got, where am I? I'm lost. Okay, we've got AND gate number 1 from both sides. So this comes from over here saying this lamp is on. Okay, then we've got this one right here saying that lamp is on. Great. Then it turns on this torch, which will turn, I'm locked. Oh, give me in, out. Okay. Turns on this torch, or turns off this torch. And then once you hit the big blue button right here to close the door, it'll turn off that torch for a second, which will then send a signal that the solve has come through and to reset everything and turn off the bulb, and everything is reset. And then the scare mechanic is basically the exact same as the other scare mechanic, where it comes through here, and yeah, you should recognize this right here. The only difference is, since there's an extra thing that you have to do in the AND gates, I've added 16 more items into the hopper counter. Each of these scare mechanics is triggered by a separate randomizer. So right down in here in pink, we have 2 or 3 different randomizers. First, we have this randomizer right here, which has a 3-to-2 ratio of picking hallways before it picks the screens. So the swords are the screens, and the other items are the hallways. So one item goes through, and it will send a signal to another randomizer to pick which hallway to come through on this side, or which lamp to turn on this side. And that will go all the way up, and it'll trigger whichever one it calls for. Both of the hallways do have a known issue. If they are triggered, and then a recall comes through, like another call comes through to trigger the scare mechanic, then it would just trigger it, and that's very bad. We don't want that. So when that happens, it will then send the signal over to the other lane. So we have this line here that detects, is this signal active? If yes, it turns on this, and then if it's triggered while it's active, then it sends a signal down over here, which activates this line. And then we have something that does the exact same thing on the other side right here with this AND gate. We also have, when the system is not on, to make sure that we're not sending signals all the time down here, we have this piston get pushed up so that way this dropper can't be triggered. This dropper right here is triggered by a clock. All the way back here, we've got a bunch of different clocks. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for the 5 different nights that you spend at Freddy's. Each of these represents a different day. So when day 1 is active, we have a 72 item hopper clock counting down, and this will choose how often that randomizer, or that dropper, the randomizer there, is sent. And then when you get to day 2, it's only 56 items. When you get to day 3, it'll be 40 items. When you get to day 4, it'll be 28. And when you get to day 5, it's 24, which means that you are increasing your speed by like 3 times from day 1 to day 5, which means that so many more things are happening, and it gets scary very quickly. In order to keep track of days, we have another hopper counter. So over here we have a 3-stack hopper counter right in here. We have 3 stacks of items, and in that hopper, when the game is on, it just counts. And basically what happens is it sends a signal every other time it switches, and it'll push these composters around, and that will change what day it is right here. Now, in order to see what day it is while you're playing the game, we have this right here. We have 5 pistons right here across our 5-block floor, and each day will raise up a new piston. So if you get to day 2, it'll pop up and show day 2. And then if you get to day 3, it will show all the way back. Day 3 and 4 and 5. I don't think I need to explain that. And this is done just by sending the signal that comes up here all the way down and adding them all up. So it just goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. One other thing that happens, day 3, we've got this that comes up and it comes over, comes all the way back around and over to here. This is the heart. This is the heartbeat mechanism. So when the game is on, it'll start up this heartbeat, which sounds like this. And then, if we are on day 3 or more, it'll just switch around this note block with that note block. So if I just get rid of this, you can tell the heartbeat increases dramatically. That is also the heartbeat. All right, the final system to talk about is the reset system right here. So when you hit this big button, it does 2 things. Sends a signal down and it sends a signal up. So this up signal, it just goes across and it solves each of the puzzles. So over here, it'll send a signal down here and it'll send a signal down here, and that will verify that this side is solved. So it will reset all the bulbs the correct way, and then it'll have a signal come down here and it'll reset this trapdoor, and then it's fully reset. And it does that for each of the different hallways. And then it also sends a signal downwards, which comes all the way down over to this copper bulb right here, which sends out a few signals. This signal goes back to the start to lock the door right there, if you can see that. Let me go closer. This signal comes down over here to lock this door, as well as turn on this lamp to tell you that it's resetting. Why am I looking at this? This is not a door. Locks this door, and then it does this light on. It also sends a signal over this way to make sure that no more triggers can happen right there. I think that's a redundant line, but I like to have it just in case. But then more importantly, we have this line, which comes back all the way. And this is a 3-way AND gate right here. This line is if the game is resetting, then this one turns off. So this whole system only works when this system is off. This torch will turn off when there are no items in this hopper. So like right now, it is off. And this is turned off when we are on day 2 or more. And so if all 3 are true, then it sends out 2 signals. First, it will send out this observer, which will trigger the composter cycling to happen. And then it'll try to reset itself to day 1, which helps turn this torch back on. And then it will also set up this, which will come back here and turn off the copper bulb once it is fully reset. That is the full explanation of Five Nights at Freddy's. So let's head back into survival and give it a full 5-day playthrough. It's actually way harder than I was expecting when I initially made it, but in the end I actually made it so that it's good enough, and I actually beat 5 nights, which is crazy for myself. Okay, good. Okay, he's gone. Doesn't look like there's a guy here. Oh, there's a guy here. Close the door. He's gone. Day 3. Oh, Oh boy, the heartbeat is picking up. I hear footsteps. It's Bonnie. Oh, those footsteps are so fast. Ah! No, I was too late. I was too late. No! Oh my gosh. I did it. Oh my gosh. Oh. No. I am playing my homemade Five Nights at Freddy's in Minecraft. I just beat Five Nights. It's so hard.